Hi, I'm Aaron Raw, and you're watching Atheist Edge.
Hi, welcome back to Atheist Edge. I'm Jim. Today in the studio, I've got Randy Word. He's a longtime member of Metroplex Atheist here locally in North Texas, the oldest atheist organization in North Texas. Today, we're going to be talking about his relationship with his wife, I think. And how long you been married?
We were married 50 years on August the 7th.
Wow. Okay. Now, what is unique about your relationship?
Well, I'm a full-blown atheist, and she's a full-blown evangelical Christian.
Has it been like that the whole time?
As we have aged, she's gotten a little more conservative in her religious beliefs, a little more hardcore in her religious beliefs, an extremist in her religious beliefs over the years, but we haven't let that interfere with the marriage.
You have gotten, where have you gravitated? Have you gotten more ardent in your belief, in your disbelief too?
I started out as an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my faith and quit believing in anything supernatural.
For those of you that don't know, an atheist, it's kind of an apathetic atheist, meaning you don't believe in God, but you just don't really think about it that much. You don't give it a lot of thought, correct?
Right.
Okay.
I just wasn't, I didn't care one way or the other. I didn't believe, but I never said anything about being an atheist, particularly unless I was asked. I wasn't active like I am now in promoting atheism in the respect of dispelling myths and beliefs about atheists that we're regular people too. But at any rate, I went for, up until about 15 years ago, I stayed in that atheist mode. Then as I watched the evangelical right start pretty much taking over the Republican Party and injecting a lot of religious values into their platform, and not honoring separation of church and state, I just felt it was time to get involved and get active in order to defend people that don't believe from being run over by religion, as well as there are still a lot of religious denominations and people out there that fully support separation of church and state that don't agree with those far-right evangelical Christians either.
Right. About what year was that when you started realizing it was during the maybe Reagan?
It was
Bush?
probably about 15 years ago.
Okay.
Now, that influence may have started before then, but
Right.
for me, it turned the light on in my head about 15 years ago. So I thought it's time to get active. So I, quote, came out of the closet as an atheist, found Metroplex Atheist, and became involved with activism.
Most couples, I'll give an example. I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh in the car. I wasn't a fan, but I liked what he had to say. That's where I was. I didn't call myself a Republican, but I leaned heavily towards conservative issues, even though I was an atheist. When I met my wife, she was, of course, very left-wing and very socially progressive, democratic. And so we, I think married couples usually, one will gravitate towards the other, or they'll meet, we find common ground sometimes. It seems like, and so eventually I voted Democratic last time, but I got some libertarian leanings. But she's actually gravitated me back towards the left way more than I was. She was Church of Christ. I've been an atheist my whole life since birth. So guess what she is now? I mean, she, it's whatever she did to me politically, I did to her religiously. And you and your wife did it seems like the exact opposite. I mean, you're still together, you're making things work somehow. Things are great, but even theologically, you all are you're doing the exact opposite of what everyone's guessing, and it still works.
And probably diverging ever further on.
That's what I'm saying.
Religious
Going
belief
out,
and
yeah.
my non-belief. By the way, I was raised Church of Christ as well.
And you deconverted when?
I was about 17 years old, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ari was a Church of Christ. Yeah, I remember our second date. I think she was in the passenger seat. We're going to wherever we were at. She turned to me and goes, "Man, things are going really great, aren't they?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's kind of scary, right?" She goes, "I know. Watch you be an atheist or something, quote unquote." Yeah. And I went like this while I'm driving. I went. She went, "No." And her mom to this day, she loves me to death, but I'm gonna burn in hell. So.
Well, I went to Florida Christian for 3 years in high school.
Okay.
We were taught only members of the Church of Christ were going to heaven, and not all of them. So it was definitely a fear and guilt based
Wow.
sect of Christianity.
Yeah. If you're not right with us, you're against us, and you're gonna burn.
Yeah, everybody that was in Church of Christ was for sure going to hell.
Right. And then even some of the ones in Church of Christ.
That's right.
Crazy.
Wasn't guaranteed.
Wow. That was going to be my next question. How long? What is the Metroplex Atheist the only organization you've been a part of? What were you? What organizations were you active in from the early days?
None.
Yeah.
Metroplex Atheist was the first.
What was your outlet with the atheist community?
Well, I was an atheist, so I didn't have an outlet. I just
Right.
lived with it. I let my wife take the kids to church, so they're Christians today. I do have some regrets on not being a little more proactive in their raising from the aspect of free thinking and critical thinking. I just let her run with it. My apatheism is what let her run with it. But now I look back, I would have done things differently. So I do regret.
Like what? What would you do?
I would have been more honest with them about my views about the supernatural not existing at all, God or whatever, which I never did. I didn't bring that up. I never discussed it with them. I never really taught them to actively question things. I'm doing it differently with my grandkids.
Do you feel like you're indoctrinating them though?
My grandkids?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm not. What I do, because I'm risking rifts in the family if I'm too aggressive with it, so I've simply decided the way I'm going to approach it with the grandkids is if they ask me a question, "Granddaddy, do you believe in God? Granddaddy, why don't you go to church?" I'm going to do short, honest, concise answers, and I won't continue to try to lead them down the road of atheism. I just want them to be aware that there are people that don't believe like they're being brought up to believe.
Yeah.
One simple story, when my grandson was 4 years old, he's 10 now, was over at the house one day. We were watching TV, just the two of us in the living room, and there were cartoons on with whales in the cartoons. And my grandson looked at me and said, "Do whales eat people?" And I looked at him, I said, "No, whales don't eat people."
Oh, well, I know where this is going.
Yeah, then he said, "Do whales swallow people?" I said, "No, whales don't swallow people." But I left it at that. He didn't ask any more questions. I offered no more information. But I've decided with my grandkids I'm going to be honest with my answers. I just won't.
Yeah. That was probably the best. I bet the bells and whistles were going off in your head when he asked that too, didn't you?
Well, I knew exactly what
I got to be
talking
really
about.
careful now. Yeah, I got to be really careful and think about what I'm saying here.
But I'd already decided with my grandkids, unlike my own kids, I'm going to, when they ask a question, I'm going to be perfectly honest, give them a straightforward answer. I'm just not going to continue on to try to convince them that atheism is the right way or religion is the wrong way. I'm just going to answer them honestly from my perspective as an atheist.
My oldest daughter, there was an actual time when she still believed in Santa Claus but didn't believe in God. She lost her faith. Oh, she had never really had faith. She actively disbelieved in God before she knew about Santa Claus.
Whoa.
I'm not proud of that. Both my daughters are atheists, and if I had it my way, that's kind of an indictment on me. That shows, even though I tried so very hard not to be an influence, well, look what happened. I mean, just doing this and writing the books and talking about it and my YouTube shows going, and even though I didn't actively try to indoctrinate them, I would rather, I've always told them, I'd rather one of you be a Buddhist. Who wants to be the Buddhist? Come on, let's talk about it. Because if one of them was a Jehovah's Witness, then I can say, look, I didn't indoctrinate them. At least one of them. But yeah.
Well, I think age enters into it some too. I've read studies that show that children can't separate or don't start separating fantasy from reality till around the age of 6.
Okay.
And that's about the time, 6 or 7 years old, and most kids find out there's no Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they believe there's no Santa Claus at that point instead of believing there is one. So up until about 6 years old, I'm not sure how much it really matters, but from then on, it does. But if you can't separate fantasy from reality until you're 6 years old, I'm not sure how honest you can be with them, and they're going to take it that way until they can start actually separating that in their mind.
Your things are being they're impressionable even before they come online at around 6, and some as late as 9 through 13 I've heard when the light bulb comes on. But yeah, 6. That's when I started. No, that's when I got kicked out of Vacation Bible School. You know the story, but yeah, for asking too many questions. I didn't tell you that one.
Was it too many questions or not the right questions?
I was asking the wrong questions, but I remember the actual question that broke the camel's back, the straw. When my mom came to pick me up. It was the end of Vacation Bible School, and that summer, and I remember overhearing the pastor out with my mom in the hallway saying, "We ask that he doesn't come back next summer." So yeah, the head pastor of the church. And I remember what question it was. It was the Adam and Eve's. Do Adam and Eve have a belly button? Oh, why did they have? Do they have belly buttons? Yes, they do, Jim. Okay, well, why do they have belly buttons? Those are umbilical cords. And I'm 6, and I'm like, okay, belly button, but they didn't come out of anyone. And then that blew all the kids' minds. But it led up to that. I asked a bunch of Noah's Ark. That one, I couldn't grasp that story, even back then. And I'm not the smartest guy in the world. It's just it didn't really jive with me, and it never really held water. Sorry for the pun. You and your wife were recently interviewed on a local television show, a newscast, right?
Well, this was 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh,
the
okay.
Dallas Morning News did a story. They did 3 stories on atheism. We were one of the 3, based on the fact that an atheist and a Christian, how do you keep your marriage together?
What did you tell the interviewer? Anything you haven't said already about how do you and your wife make it work?
Well, pretty much that our focus is like most people with families. It's on the kids and the grandkids and day-to-day living life. Her being a Christian doesn't particularly bother me. She's stressed out that I'm not. And I've watched her go through what I would call the 3 stages of grief with my atheism, from first denying it, and it was just a phase, to she got angry about it, to now she accepts it, but she's not happy about it.
Does she still think you're going to burn in hell right now?
Oh yeah.
That's got to happen. Do you talk?
That's why she's stressed out about it, but as an atheist, I'm not stressed out about her believing. If it makes her feel good and gives her comfort, especially at our age, that factors in some too. That I don't want to unhinge her lifestyle too badly by always trying to have discussions with her. So we don't have very many discussions about it.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. How often do you talk about this stuff?
Not very often, because we've had enough discussions to know that where each of us stands, and we're not going to move from that stance.
After 50 years, you got each other's, the other one's position completely memorized anyway. So, okay, there was a time, I don't know if you want to talk about this. We can edit it out if you don't want to talk about it. But your wife threatened to throw all your books away, all your atheist books.
That wasn't too long ago.
Right.
I can't.
Do you feel like talking about it?
Yes,
are you okay talking about this?
Let me tell you
all
that story, okay?
As long as you're cool with saying it on air. All right.
That's no problem.
All right, let's do it.
So when I get up, and we're both retired. So when I get up in the morning, if she's already up, when I come into the living room, the TVs in the house are all on a different televangelical preacher, televangelist. So I walked into the living room, and there was John Hagee on TV, and I looked over at Dana. I said, Dana, well, John looks like to me he's getting larger. And that's all it took.
That's all you said.
It set her off. She thought I was attacking her beliefs, and the next thing I knew, she was telling me I better get all the atheist books and everything else out of my office and move them somewhere. And it was an emotional, angry reaction on her part, thinking I was somehow attacking her beliefs by noticing John Hagee, who's already a big man. He looked bigger to me that day, and I just made a comment about it. And
he just put on some weight. It was an emotional reaction, totally. I just wonder how often that happens in reverse. Like when I don't feel like atheists, us as non-believers, we're not so held to we're not married to our beliefs in such a way to where if they're challenged or if something, you're someone Christopher Hitchens was putting on a little bit of weight. I don't know, he's dead, but a better example. But I could never see having an emotional reaction to that. I don't want to pump us up, but are we more logical? Do we rationalize things a little better and not think with our heart? We think more with our head, or than religious people do? I don't know.
Well, of course I think that. It's the difference in free thinking and not free thinking. We atheists typically are not constrained by any type of dogmatic influence, where religious people are, and that can influence their thinking.
But the fact that we're not really married to these ideas, I don't have to be right. This is just what I think. It's my best guess. I think believers have to be right. Their entire worldview, their entire persona depends on that, and going to hell and everything. So if it turns out they're wrong, they have way farther to fall from. If we're wrong, I just go, oh, holy shit, man. I wrote these 2 books, and I've been doing this. I got to shut down my YouTube channel, and then I'm done. That's easy.
Well, my religion is based on absolute beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So there's very little room for moving that belief one direction or another. Whereas as an atheist, I tend to try to view my thinking and myself like science. I try to self-correct myself as I go. I'm always open to change my mind about anything presented with the right logic, reason, and evidence is going to put me in a different direction at any given point in time. So I consider myself self-correcting like science.
Do you think the more sure of your position, the less of a chance that you'll have an emotional reaction? For instance, our mutual friend James Walker, the president of the Watchman Fellowship. I've never seen he stays like this, even keel. I've never seen him get emotional, even during the heated debate. This is him getting emotional, just And I think that it lends a lot of credibility to him. It shows how sure he is of his position. The ones like your wife or anyone, that it may not have a firm. You know what I'm trying to say? They may not be. They might not have a firm as a grasp on their faith as they want, or they might doubt it. The ones that doubt it the most they're clutching. They're trying to hang on to
and more defensive. Typically.
More defensive, yeah.
And that's the way she is sometimes. Although, in my experience of 50 years with her, I'm pretty well convinced, unless presented with refuting evidence, that she really truly believes what she says.
Really?
What she believes. Yeah.
But living with you for 50 years, some of the ideas. She's had to have heard you talking on the phone or YouTube channel or a book laid out, and then she flips through it. I mean, she's been exposed more than most Christians to the other side, and that might be what is causing her to have emotional reactions, because now you've introduced that seed of doubt into her.
It could be, but typically when we do have a discussion about religion, which isn't very often, we do have those discussions. They're usually over pretty quick because she immediately pulls down that curtain of faith and goes into a shell and will not have a civil dialogue whatsoever with you. In fact, most of the time, she just starts quoting the Bible.
Bible's true because the Bible says it's true.
That's right.
Well,
And I don't know what happened. She says, looks at me and says, I don't know what happened to you.
right.
Atheist Edge. Walking the edge of what some consider offensive. But your feelings don't matter here. Only facts. Edgy commentary on the dangers of doctrine, the foibles of faith, the bullshit of belief, the stupidity of superstition, and the idiocy of indoctrination. With razor-sharp wit, curiosity, and critical thought, we take an unblinking look at today's religions. We are Atheist Edge.